That's a Grand Canyon. The dog.
It was 30 years ago. I was 27. He was 35. We met at a party, and he was so forward and outspoken and social.
This is where he looks like Hemingway,
funny,
I think.
And very intense. He's been described as, bulldog, and I think that's so true. He saw something and he wanted it, and at that evening it was me. He was a very successful photographer, worked in New York as a commercial corporate photographer. He traveled all over the world. Usually, he traveled like 200 days a year. He'd be gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And that was just part of he had that kind of stamina, that kind of energy. He really loved what he did. He loved meeting people. He could talk to anybody. He didn't care whether they were the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or the guy working in the cafeteria. He treated everybody the same, and he was interested in people. He really loved life. And he was, my best friend. And so we got married, and we had 2 kids. And we had a very full and fun life.
Hey, Harry!
That's like, okay,
If I worked with him, I was I cast for his shoots, and I found locations, and I did wardrobe, and we worked really well together, and we had a really great, exciting, wonderful life. We really shared everything. He was sort of my opposite. He went to our family doctor, and the doctor didn't like what he saw, so he sent Bob to a neurologist in Brooklyn. And the neurologist spoke to him, and in about half an hour gave him the diagnosis of Parkinson's.
That's Malin and your mother.
Emergency. Hello, Harry. Come in, Harry.
It's a progressive disease. So at that point, his symptoms were tremors and that tripping. But it was it was the beginning of the disease. So he was able to continue, living the life he led and was leading, and work. And it only got truly bad when he started on the medications, and the medications themselves, while they controlled the tremors, they caused other problems like dystonia. That's when you become frozen and you can't move. And then also dyskinesia, which was when it's just the opposite, when you're sort of over-medicated and you're moving around constantly, and you can't control any of your movements, and you sort of look very bizarre. So he really looked like a drug addict or something, and people would stare at him, and they'd pull their kids away, and it was kind of scary when he was in the midst of one of these dyskinesic episodes. Because Parkinson's is different with everybody, so are the meds, and it's a real, intricate process that the doctor and the patient have to, go through and come up with. And so your neurologist is a very important doctor to have on your side. Somebody who's really up on the latest medication and research, because it is constantly changing and they're always coming up with new things. in 2003, after, let's see, that was about 4 years after the diagnosis, Bob was eligible, a good candidate for deep brain stimulation therapy. Bob was a good candidate because of his age. He was, 54 or 53, and his Parkinson's was really just a physical manifestation at this point. He was just, had the tremors. They had not started to affect his brain. He had no dementia. That was what made him a good candidate. They wouldn't do this procedure on older Parkinson's patients or patients with dementia. And dementia doesn't always go along with Parkinson's. Like Michael J. Fox has no dementia. It's just sort of the luck of the draw. And unfortunately, Bob now has terrible dementia. In fact, his dementia is more of the primary illness than the Parkinson's seems to be kind of under control at this point. The doctor was saying how some of his patients after the operation didn't have to take any medication, that this electrode stimulant would control their tremors. That was why, if you were taking less medication, then you wouldn't have the bad reactions to the medication, like the dyskinesia, like the dystonia. So it sort of it didn't stop the progression of the disease, but it controlled it in such a way that you could take less medication. There's really no benefit anymore to the DBS. It's sort of he's outlasted its benefits. And as I said, the dementia has become incredibly profound, and Bob's ability to live with any kind of independence has been gone for 5 years. He needs help with everything. Showering, toileting, dressing, sometimes feeding. He's still mobile, but he does trip and fall a lot. He doesn't have a good sense of balance, but so the body has betrayed him, but more importantly and more tragically, it's the brain. I had to move him into a facility a little over a year ago because I just couldn't care for him at home anymore. It was too distressing for me and everybody around mainly because of the incontinence. It was just, that's part of the Parkinson's. He has no control over his muscles, so he can't control that, and he just needs, and he can't feel it, and he can't, so that was just too much. And then his voice has gotten very weak, so it's very hard to understand him, and he mumbles, and so the communication is just nil. I mean, I used to be able to figure out what he wanted and what he needed because we know each other so well, and I could figure it out, but now I can't. I have no idea what he's trying to say, and I don't think he knows either. I think because the dementia is so is so profound that he doesn't know what he needs or what he wants. Tell her what you're doing, Bob.
Yeah, I did it a long time ago.
Yeah. I won't see you until Christmas, unfortunately. But I will see you at Christmas. I love you.
Okay, say bye. Say goodbye to Madeline.
I gotta go.
And so it makes you wonder what kind of quality of life is that? I mean, it makes me wonder what kind of quality of life he has now. He can't, he is not the man he is not Bob anymore. He's not of his right mind. It's not his personality. But he's got a very strong heart, and he's strong, and he has no other kind of medical complications, so he can go on. But I just wonder what's the point, you know. So it's a difficult situation to be in right now. I don't know that we have any options. We certainly don't in this country, in this state. There's really no options except to keep him going. And I wish it weren't so, but I don't know. It's a hard space. It's a hard place to be in. I don't know what to do.